Hello, Ryan Harper here with Pity Thy Neighbors. You are listening to Harmony Crossroads, where passion and music collide. See you soon.
Guess who I've got with me today? I've got Tanner Troutman and Ryan Harper with Pity Thy Neighbors. Fellas, thanks so much for joining me.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
You and I, we talked about trying to put together a podcast that shares some of the insight from the musician standpoint about how passion is created in music. And I appreciate you guys taking the time to visit with me a little bit about where yours came from. So I'm going to get right into it. Tell me a little bit about who you guys are and how you got started.
You want to go first?
Take it away.
I'm Ryan Harper. I got started playing music about 16 years old. I picked up a guitar that was my dad's, and it had honestly been sitting in my closet upside down, resting on the headstock for about 10 years. I was just completely abused this guitar. It's still the electric guitar I play out and about if I play electric. Awesome guitar. But have a bunch of family members who are into music, a bunch of family members who are guitar players, and just kind of always looked up to them and fell in love with it as a late teenager, and then just invested every waking moment into trying to become a better musician.
Got it. What about you, Tanner?
I was the average piano band kid, and I wanted to quit, and they wouldn't let me. I had one music teacher that just wouldn't let me quit, so she bought an instrument with her own. The name was Miss Moss, and she bought an instrument with her own money and said, "No, you're gonna be in band." And then I ended up getting a guitar and a bass guitar and did it all through that. And then, did the obvious 12, 13-year-old start a punk band thing. And then it's just kind of warped from there.
The usual punk band. Isn't it amazing how teachers use guilt to get us to realize our potential?
I owe her a lot. She was
If you're out there, Miss Moss, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. So tell me a little bit about what inspired you guys to pursue music aside from being coerced by your teacher.
So Tanner and I actually got to know each other working in the kitchen of 17th Street Barbecue. I was the kitchen manager at that point, and
I was a 17-year-old.
Yeah, and he was a 17-year-old kid. I'm 8 years his senior. He's respecting his elders and doing a good job of it. But I've known Tanner's family since I was in diapers, honestly.
My sister and you used to walk home from school together, didn't they?
Yeah,
way
absolutely.
back in the day.
Oh, wow.
And his mom reached out to me and said, "Hey, my son needs a job." I said, "Well, I've got hours to go around." And soon after he started working there, we realized we had nearly the identical taste in music. So anytime Tanner and myself was on the shift, we would just unapologetically take over the radio. And we'd be blaring John Prine songs in the kitchen and
Pink
John
Floyd,
Denver songs, things
John
like that.
Denver, Grateful Dead.
Yeah. And we worked with a bunch of other kids who were really into like hip hop and stuff like that, which we listened to a lot in our own right. But anytime I knew Tanner was on shift or I was on shift, the two of us would just completely take over the radio.
It was gonna be
we
a good
knew
music
all
shift.
these songs together. And then started playing music together soon after that. Just every once in a while, it would be like a work party and we'd both bring guitars. Never anything formal or anything like that. It was just we would be around a campfire and throwing songs back and forth.
Now, you kind of led into one of the questions you and I talked about influences. The type of music we're talking about that you guys unapologetically played. Give me a little insight as to what that might have been, like a playlist.
Man.
Honestly, in those days, a lot of Modest Mouse.
Yeah, we really liked Modest Mouse. I could get away with Pink Floyd whenever you were there because we both loved Pink Floyd. Really, the thing I found that we both really liked were concept albums, to be honest with you. We really did like concept works and stuff like that, but I mean, it was old hip hop. It was, classic rock, but what we wanted to
Good
listen
music.
to. Good music.
Right.
Oh,
What are some of the artists that actually ones you tried to emulate, or at least like when you played covers at that point, they were the popular ones?
mm, I don't know. At that time, I was really into Sublime, and
Yeah,
you were in jam bands. So
yeah, I was playing in a bunch of hippie jam bands. There's a band called Humphreys McGee that honestly I don't think I've listened to them in the last 8 to 10 years. I need to go revisit some of their albums.
Mhm.
But I really wanted to be Jake Sininger, the guitar player for Humphreys McGee, and he's
Because he's
just
too good.
he's a shred head. But reading more into him, he had more of a background in like chicken picking country.
Hmm.
So it really, what we do now is like Americana, bluegrassy stuff. And it really led to have a good segue into that genre of music.
We both really liked a local band called the Giant City Slickers, and that kind of warped us towards that. And then Big Woodbox Gang, another local group that got us into kind of what we were doing. And it's not so much as like a styling from them as it is their storytelling. It's a little dark but true, but still, humor in it and
Relatable.
relatable, and that's kind of what we pursue, I guess, as musicians and
You
songwriters
segued
now.
into we talked about this as well. You segued into how music tells a story. So if someone were to ask what kind of story your music tells them, what would you tell? What would they anticipate?
Dark.
Not always, but
Most of the time, at least the songs I write end up being from the darkest depths. And there's music is kind of a way, for me at least, when I'm writing, to get that out without going and getting into drugs and stuff like that.
so we sing about drugs, so we don't have to do drugs.
Yeah.
Or just, funny silver linings, or like, just, comic humor and stuff that usually sucks sometimes, or just like sometimes just the straight up truth of how we think that things run, you know what I mean? No sugarcoating it, but
That guitar is always, specifically if I'm in a funk and just like not feeling good about myself, the guitar is a confidant.
mhm.
Um, Recently I went through a little bit of it, probably about a year and a half ago. I was going through just some personal issues and things like that. And I found myself locking myself away in this very room for hours at a time, just letting all my emotion flow through the guitar. And it's just the best release. Um, and that's kind of also been our inspiration for a lot of the songs and stuff that we end up performing and writing. Um, just a release of those visceral emotions.
Would you agree sometimes even the best music we ever listened to came from challenging times that people are going
Mm.
through, and it just kind of inspired them to let it get out there someplace where people could understand how human music can make you feel?
Absolutely.
Definitely. I was talking to a gentleman the other day, and he put it a better way than I put it, but he's like, the sad music, like we were talking about the blues at the time, it lets you feel you're not alone, and it gives you an idea that you might be feeling a little down or something like that. And then you hear somebody else play the blues, or you play the blues, and it lets or let somebody else know that, this is something that happens.
Really, in the grand scheme of things, we're all in this together as
Yeah.
far as just the human interaction, the human race. And there's something super powerful about the feeling of being together, the togetherness, the community of just what music can bring out in people.
Hmm.
Sometimes I've heard people say that music can be the connector that sometimes words can't accomplish. Is that fair to say?
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In social media, we talk about dopamine and about people getting little hits of dopamine to make them feel a little bit better. And you mentioned something about being not alone. And I think that might have something to do with the fact that when we go through those difficult times, we feel like we're alone. And in fact, we're not. And support can come out of music.
Definitely, definitely. Whenever I'm sad, I like listening to a whole bunch of sad music because it tells me that, there's somebody else that's probably got it worse than me right now. They wrote this song. so they understand what I'm going through.
Yeah, the human condition is a strange thing, but I think music adds a place that you can go that kind of lets you release for a little bit, and there's kind of no boundaries. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
So, is there any particular rituals, routines, or advice that maybe you give each other, or who you would give to others to stay motivated, make sure that they stay the course and continue to use their music as a venue to share with other people?
Really personal for me, the motivation has just been the innate desire to get better.
Mm.
Um, it's everybody has this thing where they feel they're competitive with everybody else, and I feel music should be the least competitive thing in the world. But I'd be amiss if I didn't say I wanted to be the best guitar player in whatever circle I'm in. And it's not to try and be better than the next guy, it's to try and make the sound coming out of my instrument be that much tighter, that much prettier, whatever you want to put in that situation.
What about you, Tanner?
One of my, I guess you'd say, rituals is just going out and seeing music, because, if I'm in a funk and not really practicing that much or playing that much, it's like chasing a high. Like, I feel away at a show and then I come home and I want to like keep feeling that way. So that like makes me want to pick up that guitar and just start playing with people, or like playing music by myself. So it just kind of, I guess it's a little bit more selfish for me. I just want that feeling to keep
Well,
going on and forever.
I noticed after Tanner and I go to see a big show, like a few years back, we went and saw Willie Nelson.
Mm-hmm.
And the few weeks after that, we just were a driving force
Yeah,
in the
couldn't
area.
stop, man. We really couldn't.
And anytime we go out and see good live music together, it just comes back into our personal music tenfold.
Mm-hmm. So that's one of my favorite kind of rituals or routines, especially when I feel like I'm not practicing enough, or I'm not doing everything I could be doing musically, as much as I want to pursue it. So then I'll I'll go and
Well, what
listen
was
to a
it?
bunch of music and
About 6 weeks or so, I told Tanner, man, I really haven't been picking up my guitar that much. And he goes, well, you've been listening to music, haven't you? That's practicing.
yeah, I agree with that though,
And I feel like we
wholeheartedly.
both, after 20 years on our instrument, have hit a level to where if we're listening to music, we're practicing music subconsciously.
Yeah, you just opening your idea bank in your head, because
That this man's a savant when it comes to, we'll be driving to a gig and he was like, hey, this is a 1-4-5 in F sharp minor. Oh, there it just raised a half step.
yeah,
And he's excellent at it. And listening to music is genuinely practice with him. That's why the man's a walking songbook.
it's fun to do that though, man. It really is. Because it's
You led into
music's been
another
around.
question. Do you guys read music or do you play by ear?
I read. I'm not as good as I was, but I was a band kid, so I can read music. But
I can sit in front of a piano with my finger and be like, okay, there's middle C, and then count and then find where it's at. Most of mine has been just getting with the music community and trying to find people who are more advanced than me, and then play with them and kind of copy them. It
Okay.
goes like going to shows. I'm the guy who was always up, especially when I was in a jam band scene. I would go up and be the one harassing the guitar player. What all pedals do you have on that board? What's this do? What's
you're
that
that
do?
guy, bro.
I've been that guy nearly my whole life. And now it's more so with the advent of YouTube and social media, I'm studying these other great guitar pickers. And it's awesome to be able to sit in my home office and be able to rewind 30 seconds. What's he doing there? What's he doing there? I've learned a lot through the community I'm with and studying people that I really look up to.
This came up in a conversation earlier, and they were talking about this particular musician I was talking to said that when people videotape shows like your guys' shows, and they just do, their phone, and they say they complain because the quality is so bad. And I thought to myself, isn't it really about the experience, not necessarily about the quality?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, would you guys agree the fact that one of probably the greatest form of flattery is to actually videotape what you're doing and share it with the people they care about?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I thought it was odd when he said that, but on the other hand, I also know you guys are at a different level, so you look at things much more critically than maybe an average Joe like me who just enjoys listening.
That's funny you bring that up because we talked about that band Humphreys McGee earlier, and they were a real big influence when I was, I'll say, cutting my teeth in live music. But it is inherently music for musicians.
Mhm.
I don't think I've ever met a non-musician and showed it to them and been like, "Oh, this is cool."
Yeah,
Um, some bands just do music for musicians, and if you're not a musician, you're not going to be a fan. I promise you that, because it requires that critical thinking. Oh wow, he switched from Lydian to Mixolydian mode, and it's something that the average Joe would go way over their head, but a guitar geek's going to be like,
Right. And I guess it's true also, just like your profession, any other, there's a certain language you guys use amongst yourselves that somebody like me wouldn't understand.
music is a language. It really is.
I completely agree with that.
I think, and not just in the sense of like reading music, you know, just like the different dialects from people is just they're different, you know, there are different ways of doing stuff, you know. Here, like a funny way to look at it is the way me and Ryan play our chords. There's one chord and I will leave it unnamed, but he plays it the proper way and I play it the improper way. And
D.
he's gotten over the fact that I refuse to play it the correct way. But you know, that's just my dialect compared to his dialect. And you know, I can transfer to different words, different notes differently than him because of that way. So that just adds another layer of the language of music, in my
I've
opinion.
always viewed it as a language, and kind of the way I explain it to the layman. For instance, I play a little bit of dobro. I'm a decent mandolin player, and I'm a good guitar player. Um, I view it as like on dobro, I'm speaking at a third grade level. And on mandolin, I would say I'm a freshman in high school, and guitar, I'm somewhere in college. But it's like if you were taking an English course, that's how it would be, just me being able to take what I hear in my head and make it that exact same sound on the instrument.
Interesting. That's, you know, and I think the average person, again, doesn't understand that you do kind of stair step to certain things. You kind of have to walk your way to where you end up. And then it's still not a finished product. It sounds like both of you guys have kind of stair stepped along the way to the point where you started getting more and more advanced just by kind of walking through the journey.
Yeah, I had a gentleman ask me recently, "How did you get so good at guitar?" And I said, "Honestly, I'm good at beating my head against the wall."
So you did that enough.
I just beat my head against the wall for 20 years until it started to sound coherent. Um, and of course, being a musician is just persevering through plateau after plateau.
Mhm.
You'll hit a plateau and then you'll be stuck there for a month or two. And you'll pick up a guitar one day and like, oh, I couldn't do that yesterday. And it's one of the best feelings in the world is breaking through that wall, breaking through that barrier. But then you'll take two steps and you'll hit another barrier. And you just got to keep beating your head against that barrier until you finally smash it through.
Well, it's funny how it naturally does that too. Like, say you cheat and you look up a song, you know what I mean?
It's not cheating.
I call it cheating. But you look up a song and you're like, I can't do this. And it's just like that. And then like a couple months, 3 months, or even a year goes by and you're like revisit that song and then all of a sudden you can do it. And you're just like, wow, never I thought would I be able to do this? But you know, you just kind of naturally break a plateau, might not even know that you did it, and you return to it, and you're like, oh man, I guess this beating my head against the wall repetition really did pay off.
You know, perseverance is true in just about everything we do. And so it sounds like even for a musician, sometimes it is understanding that there's going to be speed bumps and you got to get through it somehow. And when you get on the other side, you feel a lot better about it.
Mhm.
Guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I want to say, first of all, thanks for taking the time to visit with me.
Thank you for
If there were
having me.
Thanks for
one
having
thing
us.
that you'd want to share with anybody that's listening, what would be the things you'd want to tell them? Upcoming dates, maybe something coming up that they need to look for. What would you encourage them to do?
We're playing this Saturday if you're local to the Southern Illinois region at a place called Peach Barn, but other than that,
Next Wednesday is a cool one.
Yeah.
We'll be at Bruise Brothers Tap Room in Murfreesboro every Wednesday. They do Bluegrass Wednesdays, and they have a local legend named Mark Stoffel is sitting in with us that day. And he's on the short list for the International Bluegrass Music Awards Mandolin Player of the Year. So next Wednesday, he'll be sitting in with us. We're super excited anytime we get to that and find out that he has the availability to sit in with us for that gig.
Excellent. I'll go ahead and I think I've got a graphic out there about some of your upcoming dates. So I'll make sure that I post that for everybody and they can take a look at it. And if you see anything additional you want to add to it at that point, just let me know and I'll get it on there.
We should have a new music video coming out next month.
Yeah.
I did not think about that. So look at
that's
that
exciting.
on YouTube. It's Middle of Nowhere Music. It's Brandon and Allie. They're great friends of ours, and they did our first one out in the middle of the woods, and they're gonna do our next one. So
Send me a link. I'll put it on there.
Sounds good.
Absolutely. That should be released in 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, I think so.
That's exciting.
So
Fellas,
as soon as that comes, we'll send you a link.
I appreciate you guys' time. Thanks for being here.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Take care. I'm going to go ahead and click it.
All right, see you soon.